He's really good there. I was like, damn, look, he's dead. I was like, he finally gives a really good performance in the movie and fucking died. It killed him. The performance killed him. We're going to talk about a little movie that some of you may or may not have seen by this point, because I think it officially came out yesterday as of this recording.
Yeah.
Nick and I saw it a while back. Couldn't talk about it for a while. Talked about non-spoiler stuff, and now these spoiler restrictions have been released. And that little movie is Clerks 3. A movie that I think both of us were looking forward to. Nick, I think you were looking forward to it even more than me. Because while we're both Kevin Smith fans, I've fallen off the Kevin Smith bandwagon for a little bit now. His films in the more recent past, I haven't really been into. Like Jay and Silent Bob reboot, things like that. I just no, it didn't do it for me. Yoga Hosers, yada, yada, yada. Clerks 3 came out. We both did reviews, and both of our sentiments were roundabout the same. I'm just going to speak for myself. I did not like the movie. It didn't do it for me. Today, we can talk more about some of the more specific things that we didn't like. So if you haven't seen Clerks 3 and you don't want anything spoiled for you, as much as I want you to tune out. If you have, then stay along and see if you agree. And if you haven't and don't give a shit, stay on. But we're going to talk about this shit, so you have been warned. I thought it was unfunny, like woefully unfunny, did some terrible shit with characters, and almost like a totally different kind of movie. And we're going to talk about that, because some people say, well, Clerks 2 was different than Clerks. You're right. But I felt like this was a different kind of movie that just didn't fit within this universe.
Clerks is an absolutely revolutionary film for me, just on the fact of what it was doing and how low budget it was, and I like Clerks 2. So I actually put Clerks 3 in my, it was my one of my most anticipated films of the year, because after Kevin Smith had a heart attack, I'm like, cool, he'll add some of this stuff in here. He'll give some real depth to Randall, because he's talking about Randall having a heart attack. I'm a little baffled by why people like this movie, and that's just me. I don't think it's funny. Or I should rephrase that. I think some of the stuff is funny in aspects, but I feel it does some things that kind of are dishonest to the characters themselves. And I know this is a movie about in your 50s, about kind of looking at your life in a nutshell and wanting to reconfigure your life and maybe kind of look back upon the mistakes you made. I just felt like it was a disservice to Randall and Dante, who aren't. I'm not saying Brian O'Halloran or Jeff Anderson are great actors, but I really felt like Kevin Smith was more wanting to tell his story through these characters, which parts of the Clerks movies are. And I just didn't feel like this movie did that. I don't know. I felt so kind of deflated after watching this movie. And that I was a little more harsh in my review. I felt what the characters do in this movie, while interesting, it felt like they were going through the same motions as the second film in some parts. And then they just went, and Kevin Smith just went too far in some parts.
I have a review. Nick has a review on our two respective channels. If you want to know that stuff, go check it out. Just know that we didn't like it. So what didn't we like about it that I couldn't talk about in the review? And I know Nick is very passionate about some of this stuff, so I'm going to let you talk about some of it, but I'm going to throw some things out there. We're mainly going to talk about one aspect that we learned about in the beginning of the film, or around the beginning and the end of the film.
Yeah.
Rosario Dawson's character, what was her name?
Becky,
from the second movie. Now, her and Dante,
yeah,
they get married, and did they? I think they weren't married. They didn't get married in the second movie.
No, she's having his kid, but I think I think they were going to get married. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry, she's pregnant with his kid. Yeah.
Well, they were on their way to get married, and we learned that in the second film, she's pregnant with his kid. Well, in between movies, she dies. I think it's a car accident, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Yeah, it's a car accident.
She and the baby, which is not born yet, right? No, she hadn't had the baby yet. There's a tragic car accident, and they both die. So this has screwed Dante up for all these years. I just felt like that's where we're starting the movie. I mean, it's not where it starts, granted, but that is early on in the film, and that becomes a through line for the film. And there's a reason for that. We find out in the end. But I was just like, that's not. And I understand some people say, well, that's just real, and Clerks is, life's not always happy. Yeah, but that's not what Clerks is. That's not what I want out of my Clerks movie. I don't mind the drama being in the movie, because there's a lot more drama in this movie than the other ones for sure. But that just sets a tone, man, throughout the film. And if it wasn't for the fact that Rosario Dawson shows up throughout the movie as like a vision to him, he like talks to her, but she's not really there. Throughout the film, I would have said it's because she wouldn't come back. Because that's what it seems like. It seems like a move they made because they tried to get this character or this actor to come back, and she was just like, no, I'm not coming back I'm not doing that. I don't want to come back for the movie. But she shows up in the movie, so obviously she was okay with coming back. So I don't know why he decided to do this. I feel as if there would have been other ways that they could have conveyed a similar thing and feel throughout the film. Because it's supposed to be that Dante is just really down and depressed, and he lost, the love of his life and his family. He lost his happiness. And then the movie becomes about Randall. Randall has a heart attack. And the movie becomes about him getting his happiness by making this movie about his past and all this and that, and using Dante throughout the whole thing to achieve that happiness. And I just feel like there was something else you could have thrown in there to make it, to get that point across, instead of killing this character you set up as a main character in the second movie. But that is the less egregious of the main things that happened in this movie. Were you bothered by this? Was that a thing that really bothered you? Where's your stance on that?
When it first happens, when I first started watching it, I'm sitting there going, either Rosario Dawson was really busy because she is a pretty big actress now with like Ahsoka and stuff like that she's doing for Star Wars. Maybe she didn't have time, or maybe Kevin Smith felt like this is the right move for Dante, and a lot of people do think it's fine. The more I think about it, honestly, Jacob, the fact that she died is not the problem. It's that I don't think Brian O'Halloran sells it very well, to be fairly honest.
Oh, he definitely doesn't. He's terrible in this movie.
Yeah, it's like, it almost feels like he forgot how to act. And I'm not saying he's ever really acted in a lot of stuff, but it doesn't feel real. Like, if you watch Clerks 2 and you watch him and Becky, there is actually chemistry there. Or with Rosario Dawson, there's chemistry there. There's like a feel that they feel like they've been, they have passion there. You see it like through every inch and fiber of that movie. And here, there's moments and sparks of that, but it just feels like it feels like there's just something really off about it. It feels like Kevin Smith was trying to find some way to refocus Dante's character into something more tragic to kind of outweigh the Jeff Anderson Randall stuff. And I never felt that. I never felt like when he's talking to Becky at the gravesite, I'm sitting here going, this feels so off and stuff like that. Becky, Rosario Dawson feels actually feels like a real character, and Dante just feels like something out of a comic book little bit. Something out of, it's so weird. It's so off-putting that it completely ruins the whole relationship that they had. And the fact that they killed her off anyways, I guess it's not so bad, but it just, that character was so integral to Dante, and now it's just killing. Then you're going to bring in Kevin Smith's wife later on just to kind of pay off that story. That's not even the worst offender in this movie, but it's
no. And I'm with you. I don't think the fact that she died is the worst thing. I do feel as if Dante has always been the morose character. He's always been the depressed character and the down character, and with Randall's been his opposite, and together they form almost like a one. I feel like this was just a way. I was like, how can I make this character still be this morose down motherfucker and make it believable that he's still that way all these years later? Which, I mean, you could have just made him that way, because that's what his character is. I mean, I guess I appreciate the fact that he's like, okay, I need to make a believable reason as to why this guy would still be kind of just this morose down motherfucker, especially if he had a kid and a wife and all that. How do I, I'm not as bothered by the fact that they killed her off. But I am with you. I think that it's everything else in the movie. It's like, that's just one thing. That's the beginning. Had that happened and the rest of the movie was fantastic, I probably would have been okay with it. And I understand where he was trying to go with it, and we'll get to that. But I do, on his performance, it's a Clerks movie. Nobody's performance is fantastic. Ain't nobody going to the Oscars this year from this movie. Not for this movie. And I'm fine with that. I was never asking for that. But O'Halloran is terrible with a capital T in this movie. He is not good, even by comparison to the other two Clerks movies. Nothing against the guy, but Jesus, he's bad. The only scene he has where he actually does good is that not his last scene, but the scene right before the end part that we're going to talk about in a minute, when he goes off on Randall in front of everybody in the convenience store. That's the one time that you feel like he's in it. He's in it right here. He's
that's the
acting.
problem. That's the problem with the whole idea of Dante's character. Kevin Smith did this shit in Clerks 2 in the jail cell. It's the exact same scene, except what we'll talk about. It's the exact same scene. It has all the same fucking characters.
He does it in the first one,
as Jay and Silent Bob are sitting there listening to it. It's the same shit. It's just, I know friends get into fights. I've gotten with my friends quite a few fights. It is, but it just doesn't. It feels like the same fucking scene. It feels like Kevin Smith's like, how do I get them to this point by having them go, oh, for the last 50 fucking years you've been doing this, blah blah blah. It's so frustrating.
So there's not really a lot in the middle portion of the movie.
Outside of Elias's 6,000 costume changes, and I do like Buddy Christ. I do like it as a kite. I think that's kind of funny, actually.
There were little moments, and I'm gonna give the movie a little bit right here. There were things that happened in this movie. There were sight gags that happened that I thought were there was like a handful of times, and I mentioned this in my review, that I would kind of go, is a sight gag, something pops up on screen and you're like, okay. But that's about as much as it got out of me. But there were moments and there were things and some introspective comedy and stuff that the series is known for that came up, and I remember hearing it and I was thinking, this could be funny. Yeah. And I think maybe it may have been funny. Maybe if I saw a clip of it, I would say, oh, that was kind of funny. But I think it's everything else surrounding it is so unfunny and so just dull, and I just am not invested in it, that it made the stuff that could have been funny or that was funny less funny, because you're just in a place, it puts you in a place where you're just like, I'm just not feeling any of this. I'm not feeling it. I'm out of it. So then when something positive, because it's not a lot, does happen to like just rear its head for a second, you have a real hard time of finding the humor in it. I mean, and I think that's any comedy. If you got a comedy that's just like, funny, and then you have a joke that's not as funny, people probably still laugh at it because they're in that really funny, like, haha mood. In this movie, you're just not. And it's not because it's all down and dour, parts of it are. It's just because it's not funny, because it's cracking jokes left and right, but they're just not landing, in my opinion. Like I said, there's some sight gags. There's a thing with Elias and his little Vote for Pedro guy that's with him. Every time he shows up on screen, he's in a different costume. Like a wildly different, crazy look. And, that kind of joke is funny. It just isn't funny here. And that's why I think maybe it was because everything else surrounding it, you're just out of it. Those types of jokes are like side jokes that work right after something really funny. If you're surrounded by a whole lot of funny, and you have these side jokes, they're the great side jokes that you go in and like add in to the already really funny script. It's like, all right, I've got this really great script with great bits. I need to fill in a few spots. Let's put this here, this there, this there, because it's funny enough. And it will carry you from this really funny thing, still funny, over to this other really funny thing. Problem is those really funny things aren't there, so then you get to this side funny stuff that would just be kind of like, it'll carry the wave, but it can't make the wave itself. So when you get there and that's all you got, you're just kind of like, internal smirk at best.
This is the most meta movie I've ever seen. It almost felt like Kevin Smith just wanted to remake the original Clerks and just put it as like, hey, we're 50 years old making the original Clerks. It was
like when he talks about sequels and how, what am I, a hack? And like, and like it showed the scene where they were going to shoot Dante in the end, which is an actual deleted ending to the original movie, and he had commentary on that. These things would have been funny had they been surrounded by bigger funny moments, your tentpole funny moments. I think those moments could have carried that funny wave onto the next thing, but on their own, they're just, So then you end up not really laughing throughout the movie. I mean, there were a couple of times I smiled. There were a couple of, like I said, sight gags, something just jump on screen, and I'm like, but that's about it, like the Buddy Christ kite and stuff like that. That's it. That's the best it got from me. And I hate to say, because I still find Clerks 2 and the first Clerks, really funny. And like I mentioned a moment ago, Clerks 2 is very different from Clerks 1. It is a different movie in feel, in tone, in comedy. It's just different. It is a Kevin Smith movie, but that's a different Kevin Smith making Clerks 2 than Clerks 1. But Clerks 2 still works. Clerks 2 is still funny. Clerks 2 respects the characters, and it still works within that universe, even though it is very different. So I was okay with Clerks 3 being different, having a different tone, having a different feel, all that, if it still worked and if it was still funny. Problem is, it was not funny and it did not work. And that was one of the things that didn't work. For me, anybody out there who wants to start typing away and saying this, that, it did not work for me, and that's fine. If it worked for you, I am very happy for you because I want everybody to see great movies. But for me, it didn't fucking work. It just wasn't funny. There's nostalgia for old stuff. Like they do the 37 dicks and all that from the first movie, which was hilarious in the first movie. And I would be okay with them referencing it. But it's like they go back to the first movie's comedy repeatedly. And it's like, that's fine if you want to revisit that stuff. I have nostalgia for it, so I'm primed for nostalgia bait. But it can't just be just that. That's all there was. It was just talking about the previous movie, mainly the first movie. And it's like, do something new. Well, no, not that new. Because what they do next is like, Jesus Christ. The big thing, though, the big spoiler of the movie, besides the fact that Becky is dead and his kid's dead and Dante is once again a morose motherfucker. We get to close to the end. Randall and Dante get in a fight on the movie set in the quick stop. And Randall's going off on, Dante's going off on Randall about how I'm always there for you. This is all about you. You never think about anybody else. You're working on your happiness now. You found your happiness. I lost my happiness. I can never find it. It was taken from me in a car accident. All that stuff. And actually, this scene was good. The scene, Brian O'Halloran, which is Dante, in this scene, was actually acting. This was the one moment I was like, oh, okay, there it is. He's acting now. It was legit. There was some emotion there. I was with him. But I knew what was going to happen. I knew it as it was working up to it. I was like, this is about to happen. And I actually said that at one point. I was like, they're going to do this. And not, he has a heart attack. He gets too worked up and he has a heart attack in the quick stop. Falls over. Goes to the hospital. And I knew it as we were leading up to it. I was like, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do. And he did. Dante is yelling at Randall. And then he falls out and has a heart attack. Does not have another spoken alert line in the movie. As far as the other characters are concerned, and this gets into one of my biggest issues with it. He falls out and is, got the tube and all that. He has a heart attack. He's in really bad shape. He's in the hospital. Now, we start seeing scenes play out inside Dante's head with him and Becky. This is like not happening in the real world. This is in his head. He's talking to her. Randall feels real bad about it. He goes and quick edits the movie, like quicker than I could even edit a 5-minute video, and brings the completed movie that they're making to the hospital to show Dante. Dante's sitting there. His eyes are open, but he can't speak. So they have not spoken. Last time they spoke, they were yelling at each other about how much they hate each other. And he puts it down and he tells him, he's all heartfelt. He's like, this movie wasn't about me. It was about you and me. You're my other half. You're my Han Solo. Yada yada, all that stuff. Pours his heart out to the guy. And he sets the movie on him and it plays. In his head, he's in a movie theater with Becky and he's like, oh, this is great. And I know he didn't mean all that and all this stuff, He makes amends in his head and says something to Becky about it. And she says, it's time now. Are you ready? And he's like, yeah. And they get off and they get up and walk out of the theater and he dies. So Dante dies in the end of the fucking movie. Okay. Bold move. I'll give him that. I don't like that. I didn't like that you killed off one of the main characters. But at the same time, the thing that really bothered me about it was not so much that he died. I understand what Kevin Smith was going for with this. The thing that killed it for me is that he died, and the movie makes it seem like, oh look, he died, and they were able to reconcile. Randall made the movie, Dante sees it, yeah. He doesn't. As far as Randall's concerned, Dante still fucking hates him, and Randall fucking killed him. Because Randall is the reason he got so worked up and mad, and they ended on bad terms. He falls the fuck over, has a heart attack, and dies. Even though in Dante's head, I'm cool with it. I understand. This is a beautiful thing. Let me go off with my wife into the afterlife or whatever and get my happiness that I was talking about. Randall does not know that. Nobody else in the world knows that. Just Dante, who just died, by the way. So Randall's sitting there for the rest of his fucking life, thinking, I killed my best friend. I gave no shits about him. He hated me when he left. That's like, this guy's fucked for the rest of his life. Because he thinks he is just like done he killed his best friend.
That's as soon as it gets to the point where they're doing the sausage shark and stuff like that, when Dante has a heart attack, it almost feels like Kevin Smith's like, we have to move this 1,000,000 miles a minute. We're running out of money, blah, 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 blah. And it just, then you see Dante at the end, like, oh, here's Dante forgiving Randall and he even says, oh, he was my best friend. I'm like, that feels so dishonest about what you literally just did, where, Dante literally died because of your selfishness, and that's like the worst offender. Like, it doesn't even bother me that Dante died. Fuck it, who cares? Dante died, whatever. But like you said, it's just it feels, like I said, so selfish. It feels like not earned, I guess you could say. And it's weird. Like if it had just been Randall at the counter pushing back, him just thinking, I think I could have been fine with that. But it's not.
I would have been fine
really
with
has
that.
Dante, has Dante
movie.
sitting there.
Yeah,
that's what's so wrong about
like
this
Force
movie.
Ghost Dante. He's not a ghost, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. He's just that's for the viewer to see, or Randall sees. No, he does not get as far as Randall and everybody else in the world is concerned. He put him there. He killed him. You know, they did not make up. His friend died because of his actions, and he died hating him. That's as far as he's concerned. And then he goes and shows him the movie in this gesture, which, think about it, the gesture is, oh, this thing you hate, because Dante more or less says, I fucking hate this movie. I don't want anything to do with this. I've been doing it for you, and you're a selfish son of a bitch. He goes home, works on the movie, and brings it to him to show him that, and it fucking kills him. Like, he watches the movie and dies. So, I mean, like, as far as Randall's concerned, holy shit, I made my friend have a heart attack and he hated me, and then I killed him by showing him this movie. And then he, like, it's very disingenuous at the funeral where he's all like, oh, it was this and that and blah, blah, blah. That's great. But, and to clear that up, this story, the basic storyline, I would have been okay with, I mean, it still would have been depressing as fuck, with better performances and in a different movie. But when you put it in the Clerks movie with these characters, that's what I mean by it doesn't fit. Like, these movies are, and you can have a comedy with drama, you can have a comedy with sadness in it, and death, and all that. I'm okay with it. But Jesus Christ, this movie is depressing. And it does not fit within the Clerks universe, in my opinion. Or it doesn't fit within the Clerks universe I want to be a part of. And some people say, well, it's a brave movie, and it's this and that, and it's beautiful. It's not, though. It doesn't fit. It just doesn't do it for, I can't believe I mean, I guess I can now. I can't believe they fucking killed him. And in that way, and I don't see anybody talking about how Randall is permanently fucked for the rest of his life.
There's a couple of reasons why I think he did it. One, I think he wanted to give Dante some kind of happy ending, even though it's like the worst ending anybody could have in their entire life, by allowing him to go back to Becky, which is what he's always wanted. But I also think he wanted to do the Clerks ending, have Dante killed. And maybe that's something that he decided, you know what? Now that I have clout, I can do my original ending where Dante is killed in the convenience store.
If you watch that movie with that ending, holy fuck, it is. Yeah. It leaves you on a sour ass note, and it is darkly comedic. But see, that's the thing. That movie's not dark. It's not darkly comedic until that part. It's not a darkly comedic movie, and then the second movie built off of that, and it wasn't darkly comedic either. It was just funny. It's a funny movie. It had heart and all that, and that's great. But this one, it's just dark. It's not darkly comedic because there ain't shit funny about it. And I know some people like it, and I'm happy for you. I cannot get my mind off of the fact that you gave one character happiness by him passing away and being with her, but this other character's just fucked. And some people say, oh, that's real life. That's how it is. Yeah, but this isn't real life. It's a fucking movie. This isn't closure. This is, all I can think is this guy's, he's going to commit suicide. To add a little bit, there is a pseudo stinger to the movie. Yeah. If you watch it, if you get to it's not at the very end of the credits, it's the last maybe like 2 minutes of the credits. The music fades out and you hear, I think it's an expert from Kevin Smith's podcast, where he's talking about how the original ending to this movie was, where instead of it was going to be the same visual ending of them panning away from down the back aisle of the store, away from the counter where they were standing. It was going to have a narration talking about, and he reads the narration about how the movie, I can't remember what they called it, was a big success, and Randall went on to make many, many, many more movies, and something like when he was 90 years old, accepting some award for something, blah, blah. So he went on to be a successful filmmaker. Pretty much Kevin Smith. He became Kevin Smith within that universe. And he knew, he did the right thing. I don't know, something like that. And I was just like, what? That doesn't, because we were debating whether that made it better or not. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that makes it better. But that's just my thought. I mean, I don't know. I didn't like it. I know that's kind of like, simpleton. I didn't like it. No, I just didn't. That is what it is. I took these characters that I've known for decades at this point and just fucked them. And Brian O'Halloran, Jesus, bad in this movie. Really bad. Until that one scene. That one scene, he was legit. I ain't gonna lie. That scene where he had a heart attack, he was really good there. I was like, damn, look, he's dead. You know, I was like, he finally gives a really good performance in the movie and fucking die. It killed him. The performance killed him. That's our spoiler discussion about Clerks 3. I really am interested to know, respectfully, in the comments, you know, did you like it? Have you seen Clerks 3 and did you like it? And what did you like? What do you think about our comments? Either way, what did you think of the movie? Let us know in the comments below. I really, really would be interested to know, you know, constructively what you thought and if you think there's any validity to the things we said here.